Hey guys, welcome back to another Blu-ray review, and today we have The Fate of Li Kan, a film by King Hu, distributed and provided to me by Film Movement Classics. And if there is one thing that I could take away from this film is that I really need to get more into the martial arts genre, where I am a complete and utter novice. And fortunately or unfortunately, however you may see it, the only film that I can think of to compare this to is Kill Bill. If you remember the excellent scene towards the end of the film in which Uma Thurman's character fights with the crazy 88s during the showdown at the House of Blue Leaves. Most of The Fate of Li Kan takes place at the Spring Inn, which is a similar establishment to the House of Blue Leaves. But I'll come back to that. The Fate of Li Kan is known as a wuxia film, and for those unfamiliar with the wuxia subgenre, like myself, it is a subgenre of martial arts films that mostly take place in ancient China and which primarily focus on the acrobatic fighting styles such as flying through the air and defying gravity. And most Americans can correlate this to such crossover films like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and House of Flying Daggers. Before the resurgence of those films in the early aughts, the only martial arts films Americans were familiar with were Bruce Lee films like Enter the Dragon, which had a more realistic fighting choreography. So if you are a historian or like historical films or war films, this might be up your alley, as the film opens up with a brief history lesson explaining that this takes place during the Yuan dynasty, with Li Kan being a leader of one of the Yuan armies. His sister, Princess Li Waner, was able to obtain a war map from rebel forces of Chu Yancheng's army and will obtain it in Senshi. Chu Yancheng gets a hold of this and sent his people to Senshi, where Li Kan will be to retrieve that war map. You really don't need to know any of the historical details to enjoy this film. What you need to know is that opposing forces are both in cahoots over a war map, and there's going to be a showdown at the Spring Inn. So once we are at the Spring Inn, we are introduced to the innkeeper, Wan Jianmi, played by Li Lihua, and her 4 serving girls. But these aren't just any ordinary serving girls. They are basically doubling as security at the Spring Inn. For the majority of the film, we are waiting for Li Kan and his people to get to the inn. However, the innkeepers don't really know who these people are or what they look like, just that Li Kan is going to send the men to the inn. But the first few patrons who come to the joint start trouble by trying to rob the place or cheat at the gambling table. And they quickly find out the hard way that they shouldn't have messed with the girls at the Spring Inn. There are really 2 main settings for this film: inside at the Spring Inn and the final showdown, which takes place outside. Once we are at the Spring Inn, everything is pretty much a build-up to when Li Kan finally arrives, and that is where most of the suspense and action take place. You do get the wuxia elements at the inn, but it is really appreciated once the film steps outside and the fighters can really use their ability of flying and moving around in space. Now onto the technical aspects of the Blu-ray. Film Movement Classics has provided The Fate of Li Kan with a 2K digital restoration, and I think it looks great. However, there are some shots that seem out of focus, especially long shots, and that really could be a technicality from the DP and not necessarily indicative of this transfer. Supplemental material includes a trailer for The Fate of Li Kan, as well as some other titles on the Film Movement roster, a 15-minute conversation about the film and King Hu, which includes star Angela Mao, and also a booklet which contains an essay by Stephen Tao. All in all, for a 1973 martial arts film, I'm going to give this a thumbs up. And like I said before, I really need to get into more of these types of films, as the supplemental material included with this film describe King Hu as a master of the wuxia subgenre, especially his films during the 60s, and the film A Touch of Zen from 1971 that preceded The Fate of Li Kan. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe, or don't, no hard feelings. Alright guys, later.